Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is a Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. And most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals on this show, as well as my twice a week long form podcast, because I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that info, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Thursday, everybody. Tracy St. Clair, good morning to you. It's a big day today. A lot of kids are getting out of school right now. It's my son's last day today. I got to go, as soon as we're done going live here, I got to go to his end of the year event. And I know a bunch of people are kind of wrapping up and getting ready for this holiday weekend out there. So I'm just going to jump right in, you guys. I got my good friend Nick Dangles back on the show today to talk about training. Nick, what's going on, brother?
Hey, Chris. Thanks for having me on, man. I haven't seen that intro in a while. I really like it. It's sick.
Dude, I you know, we're revamping everything right now. We got a lot going on. You got exposed to my man Christian, who works things behind the scenes for me. The guy's a magician with content, and I'm so appreciative of having that, to where it's like, dude, I can not focus on post-production anymore. I can just do what I love to do. And then he's such a killer at his stuff behind the scenes, man. I'm loving it so far.
No, I'm happy for you. You're growing. I love everything that you put out. I've been following you for years.
Yeah, dude, it's been 4 years now, man. And it's like I hired my first 2 employees this year as well. And we're just making it happen, man. That's all I know. Like, don't ask me how, don't ask me what my plan is. My plan is just to keep fucking showing up every day and figuring it out. Cause that's my business plan.
No, dude, time flies, right? Like, we probably first started talking 4 years ago when we both got kind of active on LinkedIn. And yeah, it's hard to believe it's been 4 years.
Dude, it's the truth, man. 4 years, a lot more gray hairs now than I used to have when I first started out. That's for damn sure. Sonny, what's going on, brother? Good morning to you. Corey Buchan, happy Thirsty Thursday as well to you. But dude, I brought you on because I want to talk about training, or lack thereof, out there. I think like this is a very common theme of just hire somebody and throw them to the wolves, right? Like, just kind of let them figure it out there. And, you know, nothing about what's going on in the market is like unique, right? Like, most people have seen tight markets before, right? Like, most people have seen this shift. And what's unique to me is kind of like what we were talking about before we started recording is I've never experienced a market where when you onboarded somebody, it was like a brand new sales cycle that kind of happened right away. It was more of, hey, let's throw you out. Let's get you your first shipment to see how you perform and to see if you're going to stick around. But it's not like that anymore, man. I've bid more freight with my prospects in these last couple of months than I can like honestly ever remember.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's been a minute since I was in brokerage. Like, we were talking about that a minute ago too. So like, I joke around sometimes that like anytime I'm having a bad day, I just reflect on the fact that I'm not brokering freight anymore, and everything just immediately seems better. Like, it really puts things in perspective. I had a great time brokering freight. I make the joke because it's super stressful and awful, but like, I had fun doing it.
What I love the most about this industry is the unpredictability of it, right? It's not knowing what your day is going to look like when you're building stuff up, you know, because I think that, you know, a lot of people go in and work for larger big box companies right away, which I would highly recommend. I would highly recommend going in and working for some of these companies. Cause like, I talk about my time at my first employer a lot, and you know, their training was second to none, man. Like, they really invested in their people, right? And it was a lot of take it slow and then build out from there. Like, I mean, because I started in carrier sales, and like, I couldn't take an inbound call for the first 3 months. It was outbound call only. If you're going to cover a load, you're calling carriers. And that is the only way that you're going to be able to go out there and do it. And, you know, and it's because, I mean, at the end, like I started in a tight market. I started where, you know, capacity was very tight. Freight was not as abundant or anything else. So it's like, it was the best way to learn though, because that's how you develop actual relationships with carriers and don't just post about it on social media. And then you go to other social media sites and these same people's companies' rate cons are blasted all over by truckers about how these guys are fucking them over on this stuff.
Yeah, no, it's funny what you mentioned about kind of like working in a big box shop and how like your training progressed. And like I generalize a lot and say brokers don't do a good job with training, but like some brokers out there like genuinely do a great job, right? Like there are plenty of brokers who like really value training their employees, but most of them, like when I talk to them about training, like the training process kind of falls into 3 buckets. You know, bucket 1 is like, hey man, here's a load board and a phone. Good luck. Let's see what happens. Bucket 2 is kind of your classic desk ride, right? Like you spend 2 weeks kind of shadowing a variety of people. And then after those 2 weeks, like hopefully you've picked up enough to be able to broker freight on your own because you're on your own. And then bucket 3 tends to be, it's like the crash course in freight, right? It's a week-long training course that covers everything from this is what a dry van is to this is how czar lights impact LTL pricing.
Yeah.
And like, good job, you're doing some training, but at the same time, like a lot of that isn't relevant to the person's role that they're going into after that week. And also, nobody's going to remember all that. You know, like if you cram that much information into 1 week, how much of that's someone going to remember 6 months later? Effectively none of it. So that like that's what I see when I'm talking to brokers about training in the context of sync.
Yeah, I think a lot of it out there is I mean, and I understand as a business who's self-funding everything, I understand the need to get somebody producing fast. You know, like I get it because everything out there is predicated upon like their salary is predicated upon kind of, you know, them producing to be able to keep it sustainable out there. And I mean, that's not the case with us. Like we're good from that angle, but that's how a lot of people kind of grow. And that's why it's that whole 90 days. You got 90 days to figure it out. Otherwise they're not going to get, they're not going to keep that freight or they're not going to keep paying them essentially. They're like, hey, you got to get out there and perform. And I've seen that a lot out there, but I also like my personal philosophy is this. We need to training is a zero sums game. And I might be explaining that wrong. I mean, like it's never ending. There is never going to be a time where anybody's good. You know, like there are going to be different levels. It's a continual thing. And we're going to continue to push that because I want to continue to develop people because man, there's always situations that I experience now where I'm like, oh shit, that's new. Let's change things now. Or, you know, there's new modes that you're going to learn. And then, you know, you build out a training manual for that and you want to get people up and running. You want to keep them training though, because it's like, I know a lot of people who've got a lot of years of experience in this industry that I wouldn't trust to broker a fucking load of trash, you know? Yeah. And it's like, just because you have years of experience doesn't mean you can execute at a high level. And I feel like the more and more you get in to this industry, the more you should be open to the fact that, damn, I don't really know a lot because I don't. That's one thing I can say, man. I've been doing this for a long time, but the longer I do it, the more I realize how little I actually know and how much more there is to learn for me to really separate myself from everybody else.
Yeah, you hit on a lot of things there that I would also want to hit on. I'm trying not to be too salesy with this next part here, but like part of our vision for like when we wanted to create Sync Logistics Training, our company, was exactly what you mentioned. Like learning is a continuous process, you know, and we wanted to build something that someone can live in from day one at their brokerage all the way through their last day. And it'll encompass everything from like basic new hire training to like more advanced role specific training to management training, to personal and professional development training, even getting into like soft skills and stuff like that. Because like no matter what point you are in your career, there's different training that's going to be relevant to you, different training that you can kind of stack upon what you've previously learned. So like you're totally right, man. Like it's a continuous process that should really never stop. But like the sad reality in most brokerages is it does stop, right? Like you get your 1 week or 2 weeks and then it's kind of like, you're good. You know, like you're making however much money, you don't need more training. Which sucks because people like getting trained.
No, I agree. I think that there has to be something out there because again, it's like how many people are working with their team right now on how to deal with tight capacity because it's coming and it's going to be a fucking bloodbath. I truly think that's where a lot of the exits from this industry are going to come from is it's going to be a lot of people who have only known easy. All right. And if you're a broker and you've been working in this industry since 2020 or 2021, you've only known an easy market to cover freight. You've been able to get away with tough talking carriers. You guys all know what I mean when I say that. You've been able to get away with pushing prices down. That's not going to fly coming up here. And I truly think that's where the mass exodus from the industry is going to happen, at least from the broker side, because people are just going to give up, right? Because they haven't had to sell in like 2 or 3 years. They got a couple of early accounts, and that's all that they've been working on for these last couple of years. And everything's been great because it's been easy to cover the freight. And I'm already starting to notice pockets of this country that are starting to tighten up capacity. And I'm saying not like the trucks are there, but rates are starting to increase, and you can tell. And because the negotiation from the carriers is starting to increase a lot right now. And that is indicative of a shift. That's the real telltale sign that things are changing.
Yeah, like I think you hit on a good point there in terms of brokers being very reactive in terms of like not just like market shifts, but also technology and all sorts of other things. But specific to this conversation, I think you're spot on with a tightening of capacity eventually driving tons of people out of the market. You know, people really focus right now, particularly on customer facing sales, right? Everyone wants new customers. So everyone, if they do want training, they're looking for training on like, how do I get more customers, right? Like what sales tactics do I use to get more customers onboarded?
Hold on. Can you hear this?
Yes.
That's how you get new customers. Go knock on some fucking doors. Sorry. Anyway.
I like that. But what they kind of neglect is that the carrier facing side of things is just as important. And I can't tell you how many conversations I have with brokers where I ask them like what their carrier prospecting strategy is, right? Like, how do you go about finding carriers? And they don't have one. You know, like their entire prospecting strategy is, well, like I post loads and like people call me. So like if that doesn't happen, like, where should I go? You know, but like for like the reality is you should have a strategy in place that everyone in your organization follows. And just loosely, I would structure it by, I'm going off on a tangent here, but like I would structure it by like prioritizing your in-network carriers, right? Like who's moved the lane for you in the past, who's moved that specific load for you in the past. From there, jump into some pre-qualified out-of-network carriers, right? And then at the very, very bottom of that list, you've got load boards, right?
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. And you know, the beauty of it is there's technology out there right now, you guys, that compiles all of that data for you. Shameless plug to Broker Carrier. Go check us out, you guys. We have that literal tool built for you already. We got a fully functional API as well, so it'll integrate in with your TMS system. But again, like that's the only way to fight fraud. That's the only way to fight fraud right there is what you're talking about, is use the vetted carriers time and time again. It's not go search for more trucks. It's use the drivers repeatedly that are doing the right work for you instead of going out to a load board. But again, there's people out there who want to fix fraud, and there's people who want to perpetuate it to keep their product relevant out there. And, you know, the thing is it's a very manageable thing if you are doing what Nick's talking about right there. What Nick's talking about right there is going out there and developing a capacity management strategy, okay? Because if you've never done that, if you've never talked to your carriers outside of take the fucking load for 1,500, bro, or you're off, if that's the extent of it, you're going to be decimated coming up here. Okay. If you don't know what lanes your carriers like to run, if you don't know the why behind their running certain lanes, if you don't know what their drop trailer capacity looks like, where their yards are, what their overall capacity looks like, if you've never talked to anybody about that, you're going to get fucking decimated coming up here. Because it is like, if you think that there's not a list, that carriers don't have a list of brokers that they're never going to work with ever again, because when you have to make that first outbound call to beg a carrier to take your shipment, it's I don't even want to it's just going to be extremely challenging for people. I'll just put it like that. I don't want to say the we'll keep it at that.
And it's like, it's funny you bring up the fraud piece. I mean, this is going off on a tangent, but like it's a little bit of a pet peeve of mine that that load boards take so much flack on the internet about fraud. I mean, like in my opinion, they're kind of doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? Like that's what load boards do. They provide you with access to live capacity. It's kind of just the broker's fault, right? Like if you're the ones not vetting your carriers and relying exclusively on load boards, I mean, why is it the load board's fault that your load gets stolen?
It's not,
you know, like maybe you should take some responsibility for that, you know?
Correct. But it's so much easier just to point the finger in the other direction, right? Back to training, man. When the boss is going to the sales manager and asking, "Hey, why the fuck is our revenue flat?" It's the age-old excuse of, "Hey, man, people aren't onboarding brokers right now. You know, that's why our calls are down. That's why everything's down. People aren't doing it," which is a bold-faced fucking lie. If you're actually making sales calls right now, no, it does not just lead to instant riches. And that's what everybody was used to back in 2021 and 2022 when the world was upside down. People were onboarding anybody with a fucking pulse at that time because they just needed trucks. And that's not the case. You have to bring substance to the table. If you're going to cold call somebody, which clearly not a lot of people are doing, but if you're going to prospect a shipper, you can't say, "We got access to trucks. We can get you a cheaper rate." Like you can't do that anymore. You have to have actual industry knowledge to break through. And again, take it for what it's worth, you guys. This is just coming from somebody who actively prospects shippers every single day of the week. Okay. So take that with a grain of salt for what I just said, but I'm actually doing it. Sorry, Nick.
No, what you said about bringing substance to the table, I think ties in really well to something you said earlier that I wanted to touch on. So you mentioned how brokers always like to just get bodies on the floor. Right. And they do. They need people on the floor pounding out phone calls to carriers, shippers, whatever. And like that's one of the reasons why they deprioritize training. But what they kind of neglect is the value that training brings in terms of having more productive bodies on the floor. Yeah. You know, like I can throw my 9-year-old on the floor and have her make phone calls to shippers. She's not going to have much success. Unless I really underestimate my 9-year-old.
She might.
Like maybe she's just destined to be a freight broker. God, I hope not. But you got to think about like the level of productivity that you want from people. So when you're thinking about ramp times, it's not just about getting them on the floor. It's about getting them on the floor and being productive, right? Like that's the important part. A human being making phone calls isn't that important. A productive human being making phone calls is what you want. And tied into that, in terms of like bringing substance to the conversation, like you mentioned, is like they're also a representation of your company, right? Do you want some 20-year-old who has no idea what the difference is between a dry van and a flatbed talking to shippers representing your company? I mean, that's an extreme example, but probably not, right?
Oh, man.
You want people out there who actually know what they're doing.
Yeah, I got tons of refrigerated flatbed access, man. What do you need?
Oh, yeah.
Dude, we've got a
we
fleet
need all day.
Yeah. What else do you need? You need to do an overnight team load to Hawaii. Let's do it, man. We'll fucking get
Definitely.
it. Yeah. There's nothing. Get on that kayak and start fucking paddling, bro.
Yeah. I think people overlook that kind of like marketing and branding aspect of training. We've talked about that a little bit before because like really like your people are out there representing your company and they're only as good as you train them to be.
Yes.
Right. So when you think about your company's branding, I did a whole panel on this at TIA, so I'm really into it. Like your company's branding is really dependent on your people because they're the ones out there talking to shippers, talking to carriers, talking to their friends, right? Like they're the ones who are on the front lines talking about your company. And if they don't know what they're talking about, what message does that send?
Yeah. Dude, I think that is a complete accurate description of, at least this is the strategy that I'm taking when we're training our people and we're training people is that's a direct reflection of me out there. All right. And I'm not going to make everybody happy, but I want quality to be associated with my brand. I want anytime somebody on my team or they receive a cold call from me, they're like, hell, at least they fucking knew what they were talking about. You know, like that's the feedback that I want to get at the end of the day. And I also want it to be a direct line of, hey, you know what? They did the right thing. You know, they didn't oversell their capabilities. There's, you know, they were on par with that. And again, that all comes down from that continual training. Like, I mean, Freight Sensei says here, he says there must be shadowing, observations, and feedback. That's 1000% accurate. And that's another thing for carrier sales managers and customer sales managers. And, you know, when's the last time you opened up your office door and sat with one of your reps and provided actual feedback on what they were doing? You know, like that's where I would start. Because again, if you're a leader, it's more than just a title, right? Like, just because you have a VP of sales next to your name, when's the last time you fucking actually exercise that and go and actually train somebody and sat with them?
Like, I talk about this from a leadership perspective a lot with respect to carrier sales, because in carrier sales, people are like extremely guilty of this. Carrier sales managers a lot of time default into this, I would call it a directing traffic type of role, right? Where really all the carrier sales manager is doing is kind of telling people, you're assigned to this load, you're assigned to this load. We just got this load on the board. Someone strip out calls on this lane. Okay, there's a problem here. I'll jump in and solve this problem. I'll kind of like intermediate between customer sales and carrier sales a little bit. But like, the reality is that if you're in a management position, that's a people development role.
Yeah.
You know, like, you shouldn't be spending your entire day just telling people where to go and what fire to put out. You should be spending your day developing your reps into more effective and more professional people. Right? Like, that's what your role should be.
Yes, dude, I wholeheartedly agree with that, man. I think that, again, it's an oversight because, you know, obviously money solves a lot of problems, right? And if you're doing well, if your company's making money and that, like, then the reps making money, they're more of a, hey, just leave them alone. There are, you know, but I think like those are the, like, also it's like, think about like, why do people leave organizations as well? You know, like, what's the, I don't know this off the top of my head, but what's the number one reason do you feel? I know why I left an organization, because I felt like I was kind of fucking out of my own. You know, I felt like there was no real care about what was done. And you know, it's just one of those things where it's like, there's no clear direction. And then you know, obviously there's a bunch of different factors here, you guys. So I don't need to hear every single one of them, but I think a lot of that is people don't feel like they're being heard with their needs. You know, they don't feel like they're part of anything bigger.
Yeah. And like the spin that I kind of put on that is like, money is amazing. I love making money. It's the best.
Correct.
But at the same time, people, particularly like the younger generation coming into the industry, also value professional development just as much as money. And again, I'm generalizing, like, there are always people out there who really value money more than anything else, which is fine. But like, if you're making a ton of money, but you find that you just capped out professionally, like, that's why people leave. You know, if I'm making 150 grand, but I'm like in the trenches every day, just like slinging freight, do I want to be doing that when I'm 50 years old? And if all signs point to yes, like, if I stay at this company, I'm going to keep making money, but this is my job. This is what I'm going to learn every day. Like, that's why people leave. No one wants to do that forever. No one wants to be that be their professional cap.
Yeah. I think that, you know, I think that everybody, you know, if you're going to be the leader as well of an organization, everybody's vision should fit inside of your vision. Like, how big are you casting it out there? Or is it the, you know, hey, we'll just figure it out as we go mentality? And like, and I get that from a startup, but it's like the amount of mature organizations that are out there, and I say mature by years that they've been in business, that they don't really have a plan, man. Like, their growth has been stagnant over these last 5 or 6 years. They haven't done anything different. And I just look at it like at that point, like, if you have heard your organization say this is the way we've always done things, that would be my biggest telltale sign to probably fire up the fucking resume, you know, because that's go ahead.
Like, they worry that they're not developing any transferable skills, right? Like my opinion is like, brokering freight takes an immense amount of skills that are just transferable to literally any job out there.
Yes.
But like, if you're just in the day-to-day grind, a lot of time you don't realize that because like, you're not being trained on these skills. You're just kind of picking them up as you do them. and it's not being pointed out to you. So you don't necessarily realize that you're picking up like every soft skill imaginable. And like, again, that's the fear people have. Like, what happens if my company goes out of business? Like, I'm a guy who used to be making 200 grand a year, who has no skills, who has to go start over at a different sales job. Like, that sucks.
Yeah,
right?
Daunting. I could,
yeah. So things that you got to think about are like, how are you developing, like I call it like a culture of learning, where people kind of understand that like they are learning things every day. They do have like learning and training opportunities available to them, because it'll help your retention, because people will understand like these are the skills that I'm developing here, and they are transferable, they are valuable, and what I'm doing is contributing to my professional growth.
I love it, man. Yeah, dude. I think that this is something that, it's like almost like a continual thing. And, it's something that I truly feel like a lot of organizations are going to need to heavily invest in here. Like I would start yesterday in it right now, because I truly feel like this next market shift, and full transparency, that's why I got back in when I did. I knew that it was going to happen. And I wanted to be the one who is top of list of every shipper out there that we've been prospecting, that they're like, all right, man, here's your shot. This person failed. This person failed. Here's your shot. And I know that at some point there's going to be a massive windfall of opportunity coming our way, because we're putting in the work. We're putting in the touch. We're doing all of that every single day. And, I unfortunately, but the reality is this is the real world, and I don't need to sugarcoat anything. There's a lot of people out there who haven't fucking sold in a few years, and they're one bad situation away from losing their entire book of business, right? Because the Pareto principle, I was just talking about this yesterday, it is very, very fucking alive in a lot of companies, that 80 to 90% of their revenue is with one or two shippers.
Yeah. And I'm tying it back to training again.
Yeah.
People kind of need training on how to like really manage their book of business. Some people don't recognize the fact that 80% of my revenue is tied up in one customer. Like, that's a problem. Or if you're not diversified across a few different commodities, right? Like, what happens if this commodity just tanks? Well, like all my business is gone. Oh, like now what do I do? So it's even training on things like how to manage your book of business strategically that people need to have.
Yeah, dude, I agree, man. Well, hey, Nick, I appreciate your time. I got to wrap up a couple minutes early, because guess what I have at the top of the hour? A sales call. All right. I got to go up there and talk to an actual shipper, you guys. So, but no, man, I appreciate it. Dude, we'll get you back on again, man. I love having you come on about this. You're very passionate about what you're doing and building over there at Slink. And yeah, man, how does anybody reach out to you though, to find out more?
Yeah. So if you want to reach out, shoot me an email. It is nick@synclogisticstraining.com, or shoot me a message on LinkedIn. And yeah, Sync Logistics Training. We're a training platform for freight brokers. We'd love to talk to you about it.
Perfect. I love it. And if you guys can't find Nick for whatever reason, DM me. I will put you guys in direct contact with him. But that's going to be it for today, you guys. Tomorrow's live show, Financial Friday. All right. We're talking about freight broker margin and everything else that goes into all of that stuff, you guys. So we're going to be doing that out there with my friends over at Denim. They are my preferred financial partner over here at the Freight Coach, and we are educating the industry on finances in freight. But that's going to be it, you guys. We'll be back tomorrow. As always, if you guys saw value, subscribe to the show, you guys. Share it out there to your network, because if you see value, your network's going to see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon. Nick's getting all this